Hi, Patty. Great to see you.
Great to see you, Sacha.
I'm keen to introduce you and your magnificent work to the New Earth Nation and to share a little in what it is that you're doing, which I believe, as an archivist of the galactic story, I believe it's very valuable work that you're doing. I think it's far too unrecognized. And you've been a tremendous pioneer in this field. I know the living woman, and I welcome having this discourse with you.
Thank you. Well, I bow to your grace as well, my friend. And I'm really delighted to have you in my new movie.
Tell us about the new movie, what it is, where it is, and how we can access it.
My new movie is called The Shift Has Hit the Fan. And all 6 movies, I've made 6 now, have been accidental. I used to call myself the accidental filmmaker, but now intentionally I grab a camera and go places where really smart people hang out. And that's how my movies happen. And I was a speaker last year in Roswell, New Mexico at their festival, which I will be again this year. And Stanton Friedman was there, and I love the guy. So I interviewed him. And then 6 months later, I went to your the Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference in Colorado and interviewed all you guys, because everybody there, my jaw was hanging, you know, because we're not just dealing with ETs and UFOs anymore, but we're talking about why they really have been coming to us all these years, which is to bring us into the new paradigm of this free energy, this higher consciousness, and this ability to do everything.
I'm just guessing that the mainstream media just pick up and run with all of your wonderful discovery. I'm just guessing that Hollywood are gagging to distribute your product far and wide. How wrong am I in all of that?
I'd say 112% wrong. And no, I haven't been distributed at all. Instead, I've been compromised. And my 4 movies have been hidden from the public now 3 years. You're dealing with a lot of transgressional humans that don't want this information getting out.
How do you answer to Midwest Baptist Christians on when you're engaging with a storyline that utterly threatens or can be seen to threaten the conceptual framework of most folks going about their business? How do you engage with them with this storyline, or do you not bother?
Gently. Gently would be the key word. And now that I'm going to be doing, hopefully, a TV series in another country, the woman's like, let's do your big story. And I'm saying, let's be gentle to your people until they get to know me, because I have found that when you are communicating with someone, if you can speak in the language they understand, then they're going to understand you. But if you go so over the top, they're going to miss it and just give you that.
So you're not just approaching it from a kind of a spiritual dimension. You're also interested in the more practical elements. And speaking to people like Stanton and what have you, I saw some of the film, and some of the folks you've got speaking there, highly credible intellectual and academic figures. So this is tremendous. The fact that we can begin to have those conversations in the academic sphere. And I have to say something. I have sat with sitting heads of state, and I've discussed the alien and extraterrestrial question. And I have not had any problems with having this discourse with so-called world leaders, including in the Christian faith. I've had this conversation and I haven't had any problem having it. And I wonder if you find fundamentally the same, that you're actually able in private to engage with people and they get it and they're open to the conversation.
Yes, but my choice is people like you and Foster and Stanton. It's not about the sacred geometry or what the binary codes really mean, which is what a lot of us, need to say to people to give them a third dimensional finger point, how I can understand the crop circle. You got acres of wheat laid down, But when you watch my movies about the crop circles, you go into this tram line and you can feel like this chill, come over the people that are walking in. And when we lift our arm, when you get close to the crop circle, the hair is standing up, you got goosebumps. There is such a physical sensation that this can't be fake. And I don't think it's high radiation. I think I feel fully. It's not even think anymore. That's so 10 years ago. But what I feel is that the circle makers are coming to us in these very clear vehicles that I have filmed. And I think that that's where I push the button a little bit hard for the social public, and why my work might be hidden is because I actually show the balls of light making a crop circle. And this is famous footage that was done in 1996, and very well-known people have said, put your pen away, go back to sleep, it's fake, And there it is, this band of communication on that original footage between the two balls of light. So here I am, this newbie. I don't watch movies, I haven't read their books, I got this footage, and all of a sudden I'm in Colorado editing this thing, I don't know what I'm doing. To me, this is historic.
A few years ago, I was very friendly with a beautiful man, John Michel, the famed author of A View Over Atlantis, which is the book that many attribute to being the trigger point for the flower power generation, for the kind of emancipation of people in the 60s. And he was an extraordinary man, John Michel. He's a geomancer, a mathematical brain, a philosopher. I remember he got drawn in as a great intellectual and philosophical mind. He had poo-pooed crop circles for decades until one of his researchers presented him a particular crop circle, which they were always doing to try to get him engaged. And on one fine day, they put one in front of him and he was blown away by it, because he told me, and I think he said in the front of a book he then wrote, he said that on that diagram spoke of math that he was aware of, but on no account would some Welsh farmers be aware of this. It wasn't remotely possible. And nor yet would they be able to dream that up with a few tin cans and balls of string. So that was the day that one very great mind became entranced by crop circles. He then waded in to the dialectic and started to give it some real credence. So we've had figures like this come in when they've seen it. Mathematicians, scientists see a crop circle in a newspaper and go, what? That corresponds to the mathematic that is just being discovered today. And this is really where we begin to have to pay attention, or drink the Kool-Aid.
Right.
It's real. It's happening. There is an extraordinary symbiosis going on between the galactic narrative and the temporal human narrative. And it behooves us to look at this and engage with it.
Well, when you think of ETs and you think of humans, and here we are sending out these messages with our telescopes and our communications, and here they are delivering these sticky notes in the fields all over the world for hundreds of years, and they're like text messages, talking human talk, or sticky notes in the fields because they're there for all summer long. When we start to spread them out and really study them, like you're saying, this man finally saw the one that resonated with him and slapped him upside the head. That's all it takes, is walking into one and seeing your skin light up and feeling every ounce of yourself be illuminated. You'll never look back and say it's not real.
Right.
And when you look at it, you realize it's flat ground, but all of a sudden it pops up and you're looking at a cube that's 3D. And then you're looking at something else. And then I went into some crop circles point to sacred sites. There were 17 of those, and they're magnificent, acres and acres, and are directly pointing to Silbury Hill or to a sacred mound. But the most profound thing, which brings your work and mine together, and all of your people that are into the free energy piece, is that it hit me this year, what many of the crop circles have been giving us is propulsion formulas. And when I got that piece, I had 50 photos of propulsion crop circles without even trying. Everything I popped up every month of all the last 10 summers was propulsion, propulsion, propulsion.
These old suburban mythos notions that, drunk farmers, lads, with planks of wood and balls of string are creating these highly complex, highly articulated messages in crop circles. That's just such idiocy to imagine that. And yet, that still remains the status quo. Many people believe that the crop circles are a mischief action by some rouge faction within the military-industrial complex. The psychological aspect of the military-industrial complex, which is screwing with us and playing and setting us up for different stories and narratives and events and so on. And if that's the case, then the shadow people would likely be just that, covert operatives who are monitoring the events and monitoring the responses coming in from people. What then in your mind assures you that we are dealing with light beings and not dealing with rouge factions within the military complex?
I don't find them very interesting because I have seen who I believe is the real circle makers, and I'd like to evolve our show now into really who is making them, because it is, in my opinion, a very light worker energy as far as all the different elements of ETs that we hear about. You never hear about people being hurt in a crop circle. So you don't want to be in a crop circle when it gets its messaging. But the interesting thing about crop circles, Sacha, is that almost a high 90 percentile of all documented crop circles have been sitting over an aquifer of water. And I think that the circle makers, and that's the only thing I call them, I don't know what planet they're from or what they look like, I do know how they show up, which is these balls of light that I have filmed. But I feel like they're really showing themselves to a lot of people, but we're not the ones that are getting the press. The ones that are getting the press are the ones that are willing to sell their soul and say they're all fake, go home, go back to sleep. Not only are the crop circles for hundreds of years showing us propulsion, but interestingly enough, at your Global Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference, John Cyril's...
I was going to say, this sounds to me very much akin to Cyril magnetic technology.
Did you see the cover? I put the Cyril machine, but when you see in the movie that I relate every speaker, including you, to a crop circle, and at the end of John Cyril explanation of his SEG Cyril effect generator, you can see a crop circle of it.
Why fields of wheat or barley, and why not in the deserts of Saudi Arabia? Why not in on other canvases?
If you lay it down in a crop of wheat, barley, corn, oats, it'll last for 3 months of summer before the farmer will harvest. 2-3 months. They count on people crazy enough to get on those plains in wind and rain and lean out the no-door side and take pictures and take footage. So it's going to last longer. If you put it in the sands of the Sahara, there's a chance the wind will blow and the message is gone. 2 reasons that have come to me. One, of course, is that it'll last a few months, but the other is that they're drawing our attention to what's happened to our food supply. The GMOs.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that they're taking place principally over aquifers as well. Water and the water molecule, of course, being a critical an aspect of our condition as human beings, and this being the watery planet, and the inner earth and elemental intelligences and telluric intelligences of the earth speaking through water as a perfect medium. So there could be something connected there as well. I believe that we can only be receiving these messages from some extraordinary intelligence because of the nature of the mathematic that we're seeing. Oftentimes, it's just beyond spectacular. How many circles are we seeing pop up in the course of the average year that you're aware of?
150 to 175. And that's just documented. Can you imagine how many don't get seen?
Why England and not Hungary, not Chile?
For example, in 2012, only because I had scribbled it out once, in 2012 there were about 150 crop circles. 69 were in England. Now that's an average summer. We're 60 to 70 in England alone, and we'll talk about why. But 56 more were documented in Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Italy, Czech Republic, Iran, Slovakia, France, the Netherlands, Latvia, do we hear about that one? Poland, Macedonia, Germany, Switzerland, Norway, Belgium, USA, Denmark, and Australia. That's just 1 year. They were documented in all those places. When we talked about the aquifers, I think it's not just that they're being able to use the water to help imprint, but I think also that they're sending down the sacred information to go into the waters of Earth to spread out and help heal the ocean.
Let's say that they are encoded messages. They carry tremendous import. They're imprints onto the terrestrial plane. They connect with the water supply. The water supply is the blood supply of the Earth in that sense. It carries everywhere. And then, of course, when you get into the scalar and torsion and fractal energetics, it begins to make sense at that level that we're receiving those galactic imprints and codifications, so to speak, downloads. Why
yes,
not?
Absolutely.
Makes a great deal of sense. We're moving from idolatry of old arcane symbols and ideas and totems relating to old religious mythos, and we're now being invited into affixing our attention into new totems which have more of a present and galactic and universal importance.
Yes, absolutely. And why Wiltshire? Not only are 96 or 7% of them sitting over water, but the same high percentage are sitting on ley lines. And a ley line is a line between two sacred sites. And most of these crop circles, when we push pin each crop circle location at the end of summer, we do it onto a ley line map. And the ley line map of the Stonehenge, Avebury, Glastonbury area of southern England is like a spider web because it's laced with sacred sites and dolmens and ritual mounds that people have walked across Europe for thousands of years to do their sacred ceremonies. So you can imagine the enhanced spiritual energy there is just so strong for so long. So when we look at the ley line map and where all the crop circles are, 60 or 70 every summer, we find that not only are they almost all on a ley line, but many of them are sitting on a crossing of two ley lines, a node.
Well, now this makes a great deal of sense to me. I mean, we look at the District of Columbia in the United States, in Washington, and this is effectively a private nation set within North America, which is governed by its own laws and rules, has its own is effectively the command center of the New World Order. We've got the financial center of the world issuing from the Bank of England and the Square Mile here, St. George's Dragons, guarding the entry and exit points. And that complex of the financial center in Great Britain is locked down as well, using certain symbolism and symbology like the obelisk and so on, which you'll see mirrored in North America, and you'll see that in Washington. You'll see that same obelisk, again, a huge totem of the old order, the old regime in the Vatican, in Rome, also a nation set within a nation, governed under its own laws and protecting its own strange subterranean logic. So we've got England, America, and Rome, which is, of course, the franchise of the Babylonian complex, having issued from the fall of the Caesars of Rome to Londinium 2,000 years ago, and then on to Washington in the modern era. We've got elements in our midst that have been making use of those meridians, making use of those node points, those acupressure points on the earth, quite deliberately, quite consciously, in order to do what? Well, one imagines in order to anchor a particular paradigm. Let's call it a fear matrix. Call it a serpent matrix. Certainly, fear has been driven into play to separate humans from humanity, from our own humanity. So when you begin to now talk, and you being a pioneer, seminal pioneer in this frontier science of the galactic messaging, and you talk about the meridians, and you talk about these hugely powerful messages being encoded on Earth, on those meridians and on those node points, this to me is really important. Cannot be overstated. That it appears that we have, let's say, our galactic family of witnesses, of observers of this incredible experiment of which you and I are an important part. Human beings are the experiment. And we're seeing those messages coming down and undoing much of the old Babylonian magic, as I see it.
Absolutely. Not only are some of the most important readable through binary code crop circles in history close to each other in England, but they were sitting in fields with a line of telecommunication towers. My two favorite crop circles that were binary code, that all humans and scientists and computer experts could read, were the alien face and the disc.
Certainly do. Extraordinary.
Yeah. So not only was that extraordinary...
Now, that was a binary code in that disc.
Yes.
And that was behind that what appeared to be a zeta reticulum alien gray face in three-dimensional rendering.
Yes. And it was, within less than a year of 9/11. But during the course of less than a year away from that, the alien face and disc crop circle was given to all humans. And it was deciphered as this: in a field full of communication towers, big, huge satellites, and they're really counting on the humans to tell the world their message. It was deciphered as this: beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing.
We didn't pay much attention, apparently, to that.
No, it was fake. Come home and go back to sleep. And a year apart, and 8 miles away, was the Arecibo message. Now, America had gone down to Puerto Rico and had our scientists send this amazing bit of information out to M13, to the star cluster in the middle of nowhere, and we sent it in human form, through radio, our communications, and it went out there into space, and we kind of let it go, and bang, in 2001, that message came back in a crop circle. But in 2009, we had the strangest summer. It wasn't sacred geometry, it wasn't binary codes, it was animals and fish, birds. Do you remember when we had the huge octopus, the huge squid crop circle, the dolphins spinning crop circle,
yes, I remember
the
that.
3 trout, and then we had the hummingbird, and the phoenix, and the owl, and the sparrows. It was a summer where every crop circle was a pictogram. So not only can you feel a real crop circle, but when we get down on our knees and we start digging through the wheat, if the wheat has been made broken by humans, if it's been laid with boards and ropes, you can see it's broken where it bends. It's broken on all of them. Every 3 feet, when they lift the board and they push it down again, every 3 feet, the whole thing is broken. But when you're in a real crop circle, and again, when I just did my talk, I showed 17 photos of the bent node. Where it bends, there's a bubble. Something heated 4 million stalks of wheat at the same time, or 700,000 stems of barley at the same time, and they all went boom, in the perfect sacred geometry that it was meant to fold in. The one thing about the fish and birds and the dragonfly was that less than 8 months later, the BP oil spill happened in America and murdered birds, fish, dragonflies. They're giving us these messages. They're so blatant. And I'm hearing them. They're just going, pictograms, sacred geometry. What do you guys need? We're giving you math and art. We're speaking to you in a language that we all understand. Why are you not...
Well, it's the language of symbol, isn't it? It supersedes words and sounds in a sense. This is to me where I think we're seeing an extension of grace. Look, what do you... In my view, Patty, we do have rouge factions within the military complex that are also playing games in parallel to the real story. I've seen some pretty crappy crop circles which were clearly cynical and jaded efforts to disinfo or double disinfo the majesty of the unfolding story of crop circles. And of course they get picked up on and get run with by the mainstream media. What message do you have eye to eye to those brush tops and operatives sitting inside their blacked out vans playing these idiot games? What message do you have?
take my hand, come with me. I'm going to take you in a crop circle. I'm going to illuminate you. Just take my hand and come with me.
Well, I'll tell you what. I, as a perennial fence sitter in this matter, will take your hand later this year in England, and I will walk with you into a crop circle, and we will commit to making a film in that crop circle and speak of it.
Awesome. Well, you know, the action happens at night. And Night Watch...
You're trying to get me out on a night date, Patty?
Yes, sir. And it'll go into the wee hours, and the cameras will be running. You know, you always hope to be the one who hits play when the balls of light show up. So for dessert, I want to talk about the balls of light, because I do believe that we do know who the circle makers are. And those of us that are laying in way too many crop circles and doing Night Watch on the hills, and you're in for it. You notice for me that I don't allow myself to even go into the military thing because, you know, it's just I'm a girl. My brain doesn't resonate there. And I'm still going in the crop circles like a girl. For me, it's not about the scientific documentation or the PhD people's interpretations. And I do believe that they're helping us. I do believe that they are on a mission to really reach out to an awful lot of us that are willing to give up our egoic attachment to people's interpretations of who we are. I can't possibly care what people think of me and do this work. It's the biggest story never told. And I feel like the interaction that many of us are having with these higher dimensional beings, whoever they are, when you have these meetings with them, nobody's going to tell you otherwise.
Patty, you know, in my not so humble view, the greatest advances and discoveries that come to us as a human family stumbling through the veil of tears comes through living men and women who are just engaging with the business of being curious and of being finding marvel in the human experience. And I really salute you for doing it in the way that you do it, and for not trying to couch what you do or who you are or what you say or how you tell the story, but just following your bliss, following that curiosity, and being protected, it would appear to me, by virtue of your tremendous innocence and beauty and poise as a living woman. I salute you.
Thank you.